Good evening, everybody. This is Krishna, and then we are interviewing today Mr. David Dudenhoefer from Michigan, District 13. Mr. David Dudenhoefer, a lifelong resident of Wayne County, he spent his early childhood in Westland and graduated from Franklin High School in Livonia. As an adult, David moved to Detroit and has been living in the city for over 25 years. David and his newlywed wife, Jacqueline, work in the city of Detroit, and they're expecting their first child in November. They also enjoy live music to local restaurants, urban gardening, Eastern Market, and Belle, and all the yearly festivals of Detroit. They also enjoy exploring Michigan's Great Lakes and state parks and hiking trails. Aside from his 20 years of experience in the private sector, David has worked tirelessly as a political activist, advocating for individual liberty through multiple organizations, training citizens on effective activism skills. David has served as a district chair for the 13th Congressional District Republican Committee since 2013. Welcome, David. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Yeah, this is a really tough race, and then I'm just giving some details to our viewers about Michigan District 13. There are about 700,000 population, and 52.6% are females, and 47.4% are males, and 56% blacks, 37.6% whites, and 1.2% Asians, and 6.5% Hispanics. Unemployed is very, very high, that is 24.7%, and then high school graduates are 80.4%, and college graduates are 13.4% only. This has been tough race for a Republican candidate because for the last 70 years, this has been represented by Democratic representatives, almost for 36 terms. And now David is challenging them. Let's find out how David is going to get through this race. So tell us a little bit about yourself, why you want to race the thing when, in spite of this being a very tough race, David.
Well, for the simple fact that socialism can never go unchecked in our country. And so for me, I got to know Representative Tlaib back when she was a state representative. That was one of my first years of being a legislative activist. That began for me after the 2008 election, when I got involved in the campaign for Dr. Ron Paul, and I had heard his message of individual liberty and personal freedom and getting back to a respect for the rule of law and our Constitution. And it honestly was so plain spoken and easy to understand that it got me up off the couch and turned me from what they call a don't care and turned me into somebody who cared. And so I got involved in the process, and I liked what I had heard, and I met so many wonderful people who felt the same way that I did. This very simple, traditional message. And so once the election was over, there was over 350 of us in Southeast Michigan, and we decided we wanted to stay involved. We all at once joined the Republican Party as precinct delegates for the first time. And then we formed, about a year later, we formed the Michigan Campaign for Liberty. That was one of the organizations that I helped head up. And the object with Michigan Campaign for Liberty was to empower the citizens, to train the citizens, to show them how they can hold their elected officials accountable, especially at their local offices, their local levels. It's so easy to pull the election and then go home and not pay attention anymore until the next election. But we're trying to show people that in this country, in order to make this representative republic work and be successful, it's two parts. Part one is the elected representatives are doing their job, and part two is us holding their feet to the fire and making sure that eternal vigilance that the framers had envisioned for us is kept going. So we did that, and I kept going through, I would travel the state, I would work at night and come home, and on weekends we would find a group that wanted to be trained, and we would travel the state and train them. And we've trained hundreds of activists over the years. So 2013 came around, and there was an opportunity to run for district chair, and I did that. And I was overwhelmingly elected. I've been serving in that capacity ever since, and I'm still serving in that capacity. When Rashida Tlaib ran the first time, there was no candidate the county election board had thrown out the signatures of the Republican candidate that year on a technicality. So she wrote in for free.
Okay.
So when this year came along, there were some candidates that stepped up that wanted to run, but they were leading with attacking her religion. That's not a good look for Republicans because
Obviously, yes.
it's going to make us look like everything the left says that we are. And I was not going to participate in that. We've got a very diverse district. I wanted to keep that going. So I decided that I would run and focus solely on the socialism. Just focus on the difference between a controlled society and a free society. So that's why I did it. And so we started this back in September of last year, and we built it from nothing. And I'm very proud to say we not only have a strong campaign going, we have a campaign office in the district, in the middle of the district, for the first time in 30 years. So optically, that's a wonderful thing for people to see that, that they think that you're serious. And then we're raising money. We've got some, I think we're up to a house list of 80,000 different donors nationwide. And so we're doing wonderful that way. There's boots on the ground, and we're going strong.
Oh, very good, very good. Nice to hear. And then you are, how aligned you are towards Trump? I know that generally the elections when the president is not on the ballot are not so enthusiastic. And this time being president there on the ballot, how enthusiastic are your voters? And then generally I have seen the trends for the last three congressional elections that 2014, the Democrat won by 4 times. He got 4 times the votes of Republican, and in 2016 5 times, and then 2018 Rashida, she got 8 times as many votes as the Republican. So how the situation you think you can turn?
Yeah, well, remember in 2018 there was no Republican on the ballot, so naturally that vote was going to be ridiculous. But in terms of the other elections, when you study those elections, what you realize is those candidates, what we call essentially mailed in their election. They weren't really campaigning. They were a name on the ballot. They didn't really raise money. There was no real campaign strategy. There was no real campaigning at all. Maybe they would door knock in a few neighborhoods, but that was about it. So what we did was we decided this election, I think, will anger voters because of the radical change towards socialism. There's going to be so many voters that are not going to accept this, that we've got an opportunity to, 1, raise money, and 2, have boots on the ground to actually knock doors besides the candidate. So when you look at these past 70 years, what you realize is that right now we've got 525,000 registered voters in this district. Believe won with 165,000 votes. The Republican typically gets about 40 to 60,000 votes, as you cited.
Right.
Libertarian gets about 8 to 10,000 votes. When you do the math, that leaves about 100, 125,000 votes, maybe 150,000 votes of people who are registered but just don't vote.
Don't vote, yes.
So when you add all of those numbers up, in theory, the numbers are there. The math doesn't lie. We just have to be able to reach them, turn them out, and give them a reason to vote. We believe that we have that. Now, there's no libertarian on the ballot this year. Because of my strong message of individual liberty, they left that alone, and they figured I would do a good job and represent them too, as well as the Republicans. So our job here, as I see it, is to get to those non-voters, turn out the base, turn out the libertarians, and then go to the traditional Democrats who voted against Rashida Tlaib this year in the primary. There was some 36, 37,000 of those. So if we can rally all of those people together and reach them through messaging, we believe we have the votes and we should win that one.
Oh, very good. How angry or favorable are District 13 voters about the behavior of Rashida in the Congress and then outside of Congress in the last 2 terms, the last term?
How do they view her?
Yeah, how the voters of District 13 are viewing her behavior.
I think that it's been getting worse for her every time she opens her mouth lately, because just take today, for example. Ironically, today, the president unfortunately got that test positive for the Chinese coronavirus, and Rashida Tlaib decided to go to Twitter and essentially say that karma crawled up and bit our president in the butt. And that's what she said.
Yes,
Not in those
bad.
words, but
Yes,
the tweet
very bad.
gave you that impression.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially blaming him for 200,000 deaths and lying about the coronavirus. Now, what's interesting is, and what's sad is, as I was driving home today, I was listening to an ad on the radio, and it was an ad for former Vice President Biden, and his commercial said the same thing, that he's a liar and he should be blamed in part for 200,000 deaths. And I thought, how distasteful this is. So I guess Vice President Biden in the last 15 minutes has pulled those ads, thank God, and I compliment him for that. But people like Rashida Tlaib who make those kind of comments irritates everybody, because nobody wants to see anybody hurt or dying. You know, most of us in America, we all have a heart and a soul, and you know, we don't wish for people to suffer. And so for her to make that comment, I think turns a lot of voters off. Also, in addition to that, is her obsession with wanting to defund our police, because most Detroiters they think that Chief Craig is doing a great job, and we want our police doing the job and keeping the streets safe. And you think about her attitude towards firearms and weapons and keeping, you know, single moms at home being able to defend their children at home. She would just assume take those guns away. So if you don't have guns at home to take care of yourself, you don't have police to call, you create criminal empowerment zones. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, nobody wants to empower the criminals. We want to keep our streets safe. So I think when you put all of that together, and then this obsession with the Green New Deal, which I did 2 polls, one before COVID and one in July after COVID. In both times, nobody answered that they wanted to do anything or have anything to do with this Green New Deal or thought that climate change was an issue. They're concerned with healthcare, insurance, they're concerned with jobs, and they're concerned with higher education or easier pathways to higher education. But all of these fringe issues that her and the other members of the squad are supporting, that this doesn't register with Detroiters. So I think when you put all that together, we've got a great opportunity to win this election, help support the president's reelection, and build for the future.
Okay, thank you. I came from a country where it was declared as a Republic of India in 1950. And then the Soviet Russia was behind it, and then it was trying to make it a socialist republic country of India. Almost it tried for 17 years. When India for a while became an autocracy, like anarchist for about 17 months, then the president of India changed without letting anybody know, Socialist Republic of India. Ever since, India had a very, very bad taste. And how you are going to educate the people, socialism is not going to help, and America has to be preserved as it is.
Well, you know, as an activist, we were bringing in people from different countries that could attest to this. Most recently, I remember an opportunity that I was working with a college group, and they're called Turning Point. They brought in 2 individuals from Venezuela, 2 young people from Venezuela. We participated in that event, and what those events do is it gives people an opportunity to hear from somebody who actually lived through that. And could attest to how damaging that it was to not just the economy, but to families. And so it puts a face to the stories that people read. And so, you know, as a leader in the party and as an activist, you just keep presenting the truth to people, and you keep showing them in ways like that, where they can come and they can hear from people that actually lived through that. And so now what we do is we just continue to show people. We don't, the trick is that you're not telling people that they're dumb for thinking that socialism is a good idea. You never want to make people feel like their thought process wasn't worthy or that they're dumb for thinking something. You just want to say, hey, look, consider this. You're thinking this way, but consider the alternative. And when you show them that not only the alternative is a better way, you try to show them the dangers or the downside of what they've been told, then you give them an opportunity, you give them the permission to take a step back and make a choice for themselves. So you're giving information, you're not talking down to people, you're not talking at people, you're just giving them an opportunity to think for themselves and come to their own conclusion. And oftentimes what I find is it's just a matter of giving people a choice in information. When you turn on the news today, many of the stations don't give you a choice in information. They're giving you the same propaganda. And over time, you start to think, okay, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe socialism is a good idea. They hear it in the schools, they hear it at work, they hear it on the news, they hear it in the movies, the little subliminal messages. So we have to just give them a different choice. And I believe when they hear the message of freedom, they will come to that message, because the message of freedom unites everybody. It doesn't discriminate. Individual liberty, personal freedom is for everybody, and it's sustainable and it's inclusive. But the ideas of socialism are very divisive, and they always give rise to black markets. They always give rise to dictators. And in the pursuit of that centralization of power, this is where you see all of these deaths historically that come as a result of socialism, which we know is a gateway drug to communism. So that's going to be my challenge. And I don't think the people in Detroit or in the other 11 communities in our district, I don't think they really want socialism. They just want a better Republican alternative. And I'm here to give that to them.
Okay, thank you. Nice hearing that. And coming to law and order, I think for the last 70 years, your district is under the democratic rule. Do you think that they have made any changes to the lives of blacks or anybody for that matter in the inner cities?
That the chief made any difference?
No, the Democrat, I mean, your state is run by Democrats. Did they make any change to the people in your district or in the city of Democrat, I mean, the city of Detroit? Any changes to the lives of the people?
Yeah, only in the sense that they're creating a dependency class. So the belief with Democrats is that your success and your level of prosperity needs to be tied directly to some government policy that they created. And what we're saying is no. This is creating a temporary Band-Aid for people. It's giving them a false sense of security when we give things to people all the time, or when we have government create jobs or create opportunity. People create opportunity. Only through sustained choices that people make based on the needs and the desires of the community around them can we find sustained peace and prosperity for everybody. And that's quite a different message from the Democrats. So while they run up the spending and they run up the debt, then they turn around and they ask for more money from government to tide people over who've been hurt by their policies. And it's just a sick circle that just keeps going round and round. They spend more money in these small pockets like downtown or the Cass Corridor or Corktown. They spend money in small pockets, but it doesn't translate out into the neighborhoods because those policies are only for a handful of people. They pick and choose the winners and losers. And that's the difference between the government of the Democrats and the government of traditional Republicans who believe in freedom. So I think that once we show them how we can now not just survive, not just get by, but the ideas that I bring to the table that Republicans embrace will actually help people to thrive in their life beyond what government can give them. And so I think that that's the challenge that I have, and I think that's the better message.
One of the issues that you have mentioned is about policing, and then you also mentioned about defunding of the, not defunding of the police by you, not supporting defunding. Like in the last few months or years, okay, how this control-free governor and then your mayor, they are able to control any of these violent incidents that are happening in and around Detroit and other places? Are they able to do it?
Yeah, so we have a chief here in the city of Detroit. His name is Chief James Craig. Chief Craig has been doing a great job here implementing a traditional neighborhood patrol officer system where the officers are from the area, they patrol their neighborhoods, they get to know the community. If we have, like in our neighborhood, we have a community association. We meet 4 times a year. The neighborhood patrol officers, or what we call NPOs, they come and they give reports reports of what's going on. We exchange phone numbers. I have the cell phone number of my NPO, and they have our phone numbers. We communicate what's going on in the neighborhood, and everybody shares information. We have an app called the Next Door app, where people are informing their neighbors about something that they're seeing that's suspicious, and it draws all the attention on that area. And so what we're seeing in those areas where the NPO program is there is that crime is coming down over the period of time that James Craig has been there. Now, crime is still, and now violence is still high in Detroit, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But the idea is that we're changing the attitude about policing. I think, and I think the chief would agree with me, is that we do need some reforms. We need some de-escalation training. We need some emotional and mental support for our officers. But for the most part, we need them to be well-funded. We need more of them. We need them to be connected into the community. And so as this continues, I think when I see this crime, I'm not seeing a bad person just, shooting somebody. I'm seeing lack of opportunity. And when you have more opportunity, the crime comes down. And that's indicative of every Democrat-controlled city. That there's a lack of opportunity, crime goes up. When there's more opportunity, crime goes down. So you can't have opportunity when you're a government trying to control everything, trying to pick and choose winners and losers. And I think after 70 years of this, it's got to be very revealing to people that, hey, maybe we should try a different pathway. And so what we're just trying to do with this campaign is be one piece of that puzzle. It's not the answer for everything, but it's one piece. And we can try a different approach. And over a period of time, that will create opportunity, which will create more jobs and bring down the crime.
One of your issues that you have been mentioning are that put on your website is healthcare.
Yeah.
How you are going to help in making policies in the Congress to bring whatever you claim on your website?
Yeah. So on the website, what I was trying to put down was information based on research that I had done through different systems that are being experimented with in terms of more result-based healthcare systems where it's more collaborative. Your family physician.
Hold on, I got stuck. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. We're looking at more result-based systems instead of these enrollment-based systems, which really just feeds into the system of bigger government, bigger control in the healthcare systems. So you have people that have their family physicians and they're seeking treatments and they have their insurance or their Medicare, Medicaid. And we just see constant testing, test after test after test. And then they get passed on to a specialty doctor who continues more testing. And nobody's really sharing information. Or if they do, there's a lot of bureaucracy involved with sharing. So we have now the ability in the 21st century with all of these platforms that we have to be able to collaborate between physician care, family practice and specialty doctors where we can collaborate and create a system where it's more of a result base rather than enrollment and test base. And I think that will put less of a drag on the system and costs can come down. I think you also have to be able to have the ability to shop markets across state lines. And I think the competition for health insurance, when you open things up, we'll see that costs will come down. I also think that they shouldn't have requirements for the type of coverage that you should have. You should be able to pick and choose your coverage as you need it. And reasonably expect that, when you buy insurance, don't expect that every little sniffle or every little cold that you get, that you should be covered or that you should go to the hospital for. We've got to take personal responsibility, and the insurance was really meant to cover the very catastrophic things, the car accidents or the broken bones or some, disease, not to go in there for every little thing under the sun. That's what drives up the cost of insurance, drives up the cost of healthcare. So there's some personal responsibility, but the trick in this is that it doesn't involve, my ideas don't involve more government, it involves less government. And that's the same with the education system, the idea about higher education. So all of my ideas, I try to focus on where the free markets can come in, where people can come in and collaborate together and solve these problems without big government stepping in. Because when government steps in, it just creates more chaos. Government has nothing to give. The only thing government can give to you is when it takes from your neighbor, because government doesn't produce anything. So we need less government, more freedom. And I think with personal responsibility, when it comes to this healthcare, when we're teaching people how to preventative care, teaching them how to take care of themselves, all of these things combined, I think will ease up on the system, bring costs down, and everybody can be seen.
Mhm. I have seen something about the education that you are advocating, which should produce jobs locally. So can you throw some light on your policies about how education should be?
Yeah, so education, the higher education, first of all, I'm not somebody who believes that we should be, you know, pushing our students into college. Not
Mhm.
everybody is cut out for college.
Mhm.
Some people might want apprenticeship programs for different work that they want to do, or skills trades, you know. And we should be looking at those avenues. We need to be producing more. We need to be making things again, because a society that produces is a society that thrives. When you don't produce anything, you know, eventually the economy doesn't sustain itself, and then we have problems. So we've got to produce more. But with that being said, it's a real challenge for some people to get into higher forms of education, like college or university. And it's always enrollment based. It's another thing that, you know, the colleges focus on you getting enrolled, but they don't focus on what happens to you after. So I like the idea of income share agreements.
Mhm.
And income share agreements is something that's going on in pockets throughout the country. I know of Purdue University that comes to mind that's using this now. But the idea is that the colleges or the universities and even businesses can get some skin in the game. So
Mhm.
you go to college, university, you don't pay. The entire time you're there, you don't pay.
Mhm.
When you get out, the university is telling you, based on the job that you'd be making that amount of money. If you do not make that amount of money, then you don't pay. And the clock continues to tick. And the agreement could be 5 years, could be 7 years, whatever the agreement is between you and the university or the college or the business.
Mhm.
Um, so in that time, if you've not made the amount of money that you should be making, then you don't pay. When you start making that amount of money, then you pay.
Mhm.
If you make more than what they say you should be making, then you'll pay a little bit more, but you're paying it forward. And by then you won't care because you're making more than you thought you were going to make.
Mhm.
And so the businesses can get involved in this too, because they can say, well, we'll pay for your college. And you just agree to work for us for the first 5 years after you graduate, you know?
You are right on the spot. Actually, one of our company does exactly the same thing. We
Yeah.
provide the training, and then they pay only when they get the job.
Yeah. And the
Exactly, it's a
nice
good idea.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that it gets the banks out of it.
Mhm.
So you're not dealing with interest rates.
Mhm.
That helps the economy. And you're also not putting it on the taxpayers, because sometimes we see that the taxpayers get stuck with this,
Mhm.
parents. And so that helps the system too. Plus, the other plus side of this is that it creates the opportunity for every student, regardless of if they're black or white or Asian or from a poor community, or if they're affluent. It doesn't matter. It provides the opportunity for everybody that wants to go. Now, when you think about it that way, this takes away from these students wanting to enroll in some classes that are not going to help them. And it also helps the economy, because based on the needs of the economy, we can focus our energies on the best classes so that the students can be productive and helpful in the emerging economies. And so I think it's win-win for everybody. Plus it gets government out of it.
Yeah, that's quite true. And about
Yeah.
human trafficking, I think very few candidates running for Congress have been speaking about this. You have mentioned specifically in your website.
Yeah.
One of
So
the issues that
for full
yeah,
disclosure,
go ahead,
yeah, I
please.
have no members of my family. There's nobody that I know personally that has been trafficked or abused that way. So I
Mhm.
don't have a personal tie to this, but
Mhm.
I did attend a lecture by somebody who had
Mhm.
their loved one trafficked by I'll call them predators. I think that's what they are, you know.
Mhm.
And it just affected me that I thought to myself, I didn't realize just how pervasive it was in society, that it was everywhere. It could be in the clergy. It could be in halfway houses. It could be in the schools. It could be, you know, in Disneyland. I mean, everywhere. I mean, literally predators know where to put themselves and get themselves in a position where they can take advantage of the vulnerable, the children, the women, even some men. I didn't know that either. Some men have been trafficked, you know? And so this is very disturbing to me because the bottom line is this. It doesn't matter what you think, where it's coming from, whose fault it is, it doesn't matter. If we have a society that we have emotionally and mentally drained people who are being put through this, it doesn't matter how much money we make. If we're raising a society or cultivating a society of people who are on medication or seeking therapy because they've been abused, this is not a healthy society. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how good the economy is. So this is very serious. And what was disturbing to me is that on the federal side, you would think that this issue would be handled in the judiciary, and it's not. It's being handled. There's not as much resources federal.
From the people you need to the jobs you want, and everything in between. Find jobs on Easy Jobs.
Yeah, this is about what is the message that you are going to give to your voters so that they will vote for you.
Yeah. So the message is just that we want to restore more freedom for people, less bureaucracy inside of government that really is kind of creating more roadblocks for people to actually realize their dreams and to thrive. What we're hearing from people more and more as we knock doors is that they want more opportunity, and they see that the economy goes through these ups and downs, and that the booms get shorter and the busts seem to get longer and deeper. And they're looking for answers as to why this is. For me, I got involved in politics because of the money. The money that we use has been created out of nothing. The government has the authority to create money, and in any amount that it wants. And we've seen over the years that by this creation of money, it's distorting the value of the money, which means that laborers are having to work longer and harder for less purchasing power. It's punishing the people who try to save because the market doesn't know the difference between the dollar bill that you put under the mattress 20 years ago and the one that it printed off the printing press 20 minutes ago. It spends the way the economy that day says it's going to spend. And so it's punishing people. And so what I'm just trying to simply say is that there's so many Band-Aids out there. We have politicians that want to either, create more money and try to, solve problems with more spending, more taxing. But we're seeing that that's not the solution. That's not a long-term solution. What we need to do is to get back to reality. We need to get back to a commodity-based standard that's predicated upon the creation and expansion of people's labor and productivity rather than the creation and expansion of continuous debt. Debt begets debt. Debt does not beget wealth. And so you have to explain that to people in a very simple way that they understand. I call it the inflation tax. It's a hidden tax. It's a tax that's not on paper. It's a tax that's a sort of a result of a phenomenon every time government creates new money, new purchasing power. And so if the money serves as the foundation of any economy, then if the economy is sick, then you have to look to the foundation, which is the money. If the money's sick, then the economy is going to be sick. I mean, that's just, the health of the economy depends on the health of the money. And we have to be in control of that money. So my message is that I want to go in there and be a part of the kind of change that's going to be sustainable, long-term, and permanent, not some Band-Aid fix. So while that might not sound like a sexy message that doesn't fit conveniently into a 30-second soundbite, it takes a little bit more explaining. But I think people, they may not understand the mechanism, but they understand the end result. They feel the end result. And so I just want to let them know that I understand it, that I'm willing to go there and work with people who also understand it. And we have to elect people who have the political courage to be able to be honest about what the problem is and to take on the problem. Because there are other nations who use a similar type of currency, but isn't it interesting that the nations we go to war with are the ones who are not using phony money? They're using some type of commodity standard, whether it's the petrodollar, oil, or some other commodity. And I think that we've got to recognize that we can be a stronger nation when we're, participating in an honest system of money and credit, which is going to make the economy stronger and make all of us more prosperous as individuals, as families, and as states and as communities. So this is a difficult task, but we can't just keep kicking the can down the road and pretending like it doesn't exist and coming up with all of these, crazy explanations as to what's wrong. And then at the end of the day, we're just throwing more money at the problem, and it's just compounding it. It's just making it worse. So I know that was a long explanation, but it's sometimes it's difficult to just give a quick answer to something that really has been going on for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I tell people. And I think for the most part, they may not understand the details of it, but they get it. And they are appreciative of the fact that somebody's willing to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, your final remarks on mail-in ballot.
Oh, the mail-in ballots. Well, I'm concerned, of course, because we're seeing little examples here and there of, voter fraud. The president talked about ballots being found in a ditch or in a waste paper basket. I think that people, when they're politically motivated, they tend to do things they wouldn't normally do. And they think because nobody's looking that it won't hurt. They'll throw away ballots or they'll miscount ballots, Mm-hmm. It may not be every single worker in every single, but if enough people do it, it adds up. And it's not good for the society, because once you lose confidence in the electoral system, once you lose confidence in your government, you break into third world chaos. And we can't have that here. We've got such a beautiful country here where the system of checks and balances works. The system, the peaceful transition of power works. But we have people that are way too hungry for control over other human beings and hungry for power. It's not about money. It's about power and control. And in the pursuit of that power and control, they will cheat. And they're doing is cheating the system. They're cheating the country, which ultimately will cheat them one day, because they may win today, but somebody else could get the idea and they lose tomorrow. And then we all lose. So I'm concerned about it. I think for the most part, people recognize the concerns. I think a lot of people will actually go to the polls and vote. And if it comes to the question of safety, if we're safe enough to go to the grocery store and shop, we're safe enough to go and put on a mask and make a vote for ourselves, for our country. So
thank you and good luck for you. And we'll see you definitely on 4th of November.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
As a congressman. Thank you. Thank you. All the best. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.